This morning, the Prime Minister, unpopular in the country, under pressure in his party. As Labour's conference begins here in Liverpool, Sir Keir Starmer joins us exclusively live. With me throughout the show, Alan Johnson, a Cabinet Minister under Blair and Brown, Belle Ribeiro-Addy, Labour MP and prominent voice on the left of the party, and Gary Smith, boss of the powerful GMB Trades Union. And joining us down the line from London, the Shadow Housing Secretary and one-time leadership contender himself, James Cleverly. And a first for us, a guest joining us from the high seas. Gaza and climate change activist Greta Thunberg joins us too. Morning from lovely Liverpool. And let's start, as we always do, with what is making the news today. Many of the papers lead on the mood of the Labour Party. The Sunday Times has a bullish Prime Minister saying we can pull this round. In the Sunday Mirror, he has pointed his anger at Nigel Farage, saying he is grubby. The Independent on Sunday, though, says things look bleak ahead of the budget in November, while the Sunday Telegraph says the Chancellor faces a revolt here at the conference over her spending rules. The Mail on Sunday chooses a different story, leading on Prince Harry and a claim that his attempts to reunite with the King are being sabotaged by the men in grey suits. Now then, you might remember a year ago, Sir Keir Starmer told me and you that he was going to have to be unpopular to get things done. Well, he's achieved that. For months, his party has been behind in the polls. And since we last spoke to him in March, there have been scandals and slip-ups, resulting in the last few weeks open discussion in some quarters of whether he's the right man for the job. One senior figure in the party told me talks of whether he's up to it is both lunatic and real. So the pressure is on right now for the Prime Minister to assert his authority. As we travelled here from London to Liverpool, he told me he's up for the fight.
Calling at Nuneaton. Crew.
Not the journey he expected.
How are you?
Very good. Very good. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to make the case. I really want to make the case.
The next 72 hours are vital for this leader, under profound threat from reform.
What's on your mind?
Making the big argument, which I want to do on Tuesday, about the future of the country, the soul of the country. This one is different because it's about Labour or Labour government versus a different proposition, which is the populist right and reform. So that's why it's a really important conference.
The reason he's preparing so intensely for the next few days is that, frankly, the last couple of months have been a bit of a nightmare.
We're shortly arriving to Liverpool Lime Street.
He's arrived here after weeks of turmoil in government and months miles behind in the polls.
Oh, that's brilliant, thanks. I thought you were going to give me a cup with Liverpool FC on it.
One achievement to boast of, meeting local teens to talk about the Hillsborough Law, passed by this government after years.
36 years of injustice, we were able to write that with the Hillsborough Law, and that was a real moment for Liverpool.
Keir Starmer's election win was extraordinary, but there have been so many problems since then. There are even open questions about his leadership. What do you hope you'll achieve in the next few days?
I want nobody to leave this conference not knowing what matters most to me and the government. At the end of it, people can say I agree or disagree, but they can't say I don't know what he stands for, I don't know what he's trying to achieve.
Well, Prime Minister, welcome to the programme. How much trouble are you in?
Well, we've got a lot of hard work to do. We've achieved great things in the first year of the Labour government. We said we would do 2 million extra NHS appointments. We've done 5 million, and confidence in the NHS is going up, so that's a good thing. We said that we'd roll out childcare. This is childcare from 9 months to 4 years. For parents and carers, that's thousands of pounds saved. For children, it's a game changer. I am sick and tired of stories about 4-year-olds arriving in reception, some reading quite well, others virtually in nappies. So we're going to change that and make sure every single child gets to the starting line of education in an equal position. And just this month, we've introduced the Hillsborough Law, which is going to change thousands of lives. We won the order for frigates from Norway. That's £10 billion. That's That's 15 years of shipbuilding on the Clyde. So there's a lot we've achieved, but we've got to do more. We inherited a complete mess, a broken economy, broken public services. We said we would change that, and I always said that would take time.
And yet,
but I
Prime
do
Minister,
understand people are frustrated because if they lived through 14 years of failure, they want change to come more quickly. So I do understand the frustration.
That's a different thing than you admitting that you are in quite a bit of political trouble. The very latest opinion polls suggest if there were an election right now, Labour would have fewer than 100 seats. So how much trouble are you in?
Well, Laura, we won last year in July a mandate to change the country.
How much trouble are you in right now?
I always said that would take time. We will be judged at the next election, quite rightly, on whether we have improved living standards, people feel better off, on whether the public services are better, particularly the NHS, and whether people feel safe and secure in their own community.
But I'm asking you about the situation right now, because there are a lot of people in your own party coming here to Liverpool who really worry about what's been going on. Do you accept that you are in political trouble?
Laura, in politics, there are always going to be comments about leaders and leadership, particularly at times like conference.
There aren't always polls that put the governing party so far behind.
I always focus on what is it we're trying to achieve. What are we delivering? Just this month, the Hillsborough Law. That is so important. You were with me at the Liverpool Echo
and we've discussed that already.
Righting an injustice that's gone on for 36 years, but also changing the position for thousands of people in the future.
And you've mentioned that already. So let's talk about what else you're going to be talking about in the next few days. You've already admitted many people in the public are impatient and they're angry. Your answer is to call reform the enemy and promise patriotic renewal. What does that mean in brass tacks?
Well, patriotic renewal is fixing the problems in the country that we inherited, but changing the country as we do so. Let me just give you 2 or 3 practical examples. We've got to get the economy working. We've got to get wealth creation, but it needs to be everywhere across the country. And that is what I want to change. Not going back to economic growth that is in some parts of the country, but not all parts of the country. With the NHS, obviously, we need to fix it, but I want to do more than fix it. I want to make sure it's fit for the future. So that means bringing it closer to people, recognising the way in which disease and illness has changed, making sure we're using technology as we go forward. And the other thing is changing the relationship between the state and people. So last Thursday, we rolled out the Pride in Place funding. This is 10 years worth of funding to places which, in my view, have been overlooked for too long. But what's different is instead of those places having to come to Whitehall, cap in hand, asking for approval of what's needed in their place, we've said, you've got skin in the game, you've got a better idea what's going to work in your community, you make those decisions. So it's about renewing, but it's patriotic because it's about bringing the whole country with us. I love and have pride in my country, and I want to serve the whole of our country, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, and I want to serve the whole of that country. And I was arguing against reform because reform do not believe in that country. They want to tear that country apart. What was said last week about deporting migrants who are lawfully here, who've been here for years, working in our hospitals, in our schools, running businesses, our neighbours, and Reform say they want to deport them. That would tear our country apart.
Is that immoral
We are,
in your
at the
view?
moment, a leading member of the coalition of the willing, corralling and bringing together European countries to fight the aggression of Putin. Imagine if Reform came in and they were cozying up to Putin.
But
and
on that policy specifically,
the impact that would have on our security and defence. And that's why I say to my party, and my main message to this conference is, this is a different fight. It is a fight about the future of our country, about who we are as what patriotism is and what we stand for in our place in the world.
But
It's a fight we must be in, and it's a fight we must win. And I'm absolutely determined that we will.
But for many people, there has been concern about what's going on in this country because of immigration. And you yourself said on Friday that the left got it wrong on illegal immigration. When did you realise you'd got it wrong?
Well, I've thought for some time that the left got it wrong because...
Well, when did you realise that?
I mean, soon after I was a politician, I went to Oldham and met a number of people there who wanted to tell me what their concerns were.
So what, more than 10 years ago, you thought illegal
thought that
immigration
we've
was gone
got this wrong, and we need to understand what people's concerns are.
So what did you do about it then?
Well, we came into power 1 year ago. One of my frustration is I came into politics and I spent 9 years in opposition. That means 9 years voting and losing. We've had 1 year in power, and what we've done is take measures to improve law enforcement to tackle illegal migration. I want to strengthen the powers of those who enforce our borders, our law enforcement through the Borders Bill. Reform, and the Tories vote against that. We've struck a returns deal with France that means for the first time since we left the EU, because back in the days of the EU we could actually return to France and other countries. Now we can return to France. We're doing, we've done 35,000 returns since we've been in power, which is the highest number for nearly 10 years.
Have you ever been to see an asylum hotel?
Yes, I have seen an asylum hotel.
And what did you think when you went there? When you went to which community? Can you tell us where you went?
I want to reduce the number of people in asylum hotels. I want to empty those asylum hotels. I completely understand the frustration that people have in relation to the hotels. It frustrates me because what happened was we inherited tens of thousands of asylum claims which hadn't been processed by the last government. You have got to process them. So they then opened the hotels to put people into hotels. It's my job to empty it. So what I've done to do that is to ensure that we've got many more people processing claims. Where we process claims and people have found that they've got no right to be here, we're returning them to the country they came from, more than ever before.
By 2029, which is more than 3 years
Yeah, I'd like to bring that forward. I'd like to bring that forward.
But will you commit to bringing that forward?
Well, we've got to process the claims. I'm looking at alternative accommodation and doing everything we can to bring that forward. I do understand the concern. But it was a problem with, if you leave tens of thousands of people and don't process their claims, they are in a place where they can't go backwards or forward. They can't be returned to the country they came from because they haven't been processed.
And you've talked about the long-term build-up of these problems.
Our job as ever is to fix the problems we inherited.
But what about what's happening right now? Because you have been in power now for 14 months. This is not, you haven't just walked through the door of number 10. Is it fair for asylum seekers to have taxis paid for them by the taxpayer to go to doctor's appointments, sometimes hundreds of miles away? Is that fair?
No, it isn't.
Will you stop it
happening.
immediately?
It shouldn't be happening. It's not fair, and I understand that. We will stop it.
Immediately?
Well, as soon as we can, but we will stop it. It's not fair. I completely understand that, and it shouldn't be happening.
Is it fair for asylum seekers to be allowed to appeal more than once? Of course, the right of appeal is part of our justice system, but as things stand, asylum seekers can appeal more than once if they are told they have to leave the country.
Well, I want to look at the rights of appeal and see whether we can't improve that, because there are too many examples of, for example, people coming here on student visas, doing their studies, and at the end of that exercise, then claiming asylum. We've got, even in the last few weeks, when we've had the returns agreement up with France, when we've tried to return people, there are claims put in hours before the return, which could have been put in weeks before. So we need to look across the board. I think we need to look at every aspect of illegal migration, upstream, looking at the causes, which of course are often poverty, climate change, persecution, look at the causes, and as a global leader, see what we can do about that with other countries. Much more law enforcement, particularly with France on the northern border, processing those claims, returning people who shouldn't be here, looking across the appeal system to see whether we can't make it more effective and more efficient. All of that needs to be done, including introducing, as I announced this week, digital ID, so that we are clear in the principle that you cannot work in the United Kingdom if you do not have ID. Because too many people are able to get into the black economy and work illegally in this country, and we need to deal with that and deal with that effectively.
One of our viewers got in touch and wanted us to ask this question. Russ Brown wanted us to ask you if you really believe that those profiting from human trafficking will think, oh dear, I have to check your digital ID now. I can't carry on paying you £1.50 an hour to work in my sweatshop.
I'm absolutely convinced that amongst the reasons that people travel through France, which is a safe country, to come to the United Kingdom, amongst the reasons is because it's easier to work in our illegal economy than it is in other countries. And we have to deal with that.
Bosses who are prepared to hire people illegally are not asking them for their national insurance card. So what's the evidence? What makes you think they're suddenly going to ask them for a digital ID?
We need to be really clear. You must have ID, mandatory digital ID, in order to work, because we have to stop illegal working. If you look at any of the raids, we've massively increased the number of raids on working premises. It is absolutely clear that people are working illegally in numbers.
But why do you think that them having
having
to have a digital ID would stop that problem, when right now people are meant to have a national insurance number and card, and if they're not asked for that, a boss is willing already to break the rules? What's the difference going to be? Well,
the difference is this is on point of starting, not a retrospective exercise as it now is. It is an automatic collection of the information by the government, so we know exactly who is working in our economy, and it will help us enforce the rules that are there. But there's no point people saying to me, why do we need it, when we all acknowledge there is a problem. People are working illegally in our economy. It is amongst the reasons that people want to come to the United Kingdom. We have to deal with that. I made a pledge that we would do whatever was necessary, use whatever tools were available to deal with illegal migration. I intend to do so.
And you're presenting all of this in a sort of ideology, I suppose, an ideological point that you're making now, that we are in a new battle and that your party is up against an extreme party. You're sort of representing the mainstream as the extreme. You mentioned your grave concern about the reform policy, potentially to deport people who already live here. Do you think that's an immoral policy?
Yes, I do. And I think this is fundamental to who we are as a country. We are a proud, tolerant country, reasonable-minded, live and let live, and we are a diverse country where people have come here for centuries to this country to make up who we are. It is one thing to say we're going to remove illegal migrants, people who have no right to be here. I'm up for that. It is a completely different thing to say we are going to reach in to people who are lawfully here and start removing them. They are our neighbours. They're people who work in our economy. They are part of who we are. It will rip this country apart. And if you're patriotic, you want to serve the whole of your country, everybody in your country, and have an ability to bring that country together and walk forward towards the challenges. You cannot do that if you are divisive, if you only truly want to serve a section of our country. And that's why the fight with reform is different. Most elections have always been Labour or Conservative. This is a different election that we're facing. We have not had a proposition like reform in this country ever before. We've seen it in France and Germany and plenty of other countries. This is a different fight. It is a fight about who we are as a country. It goes to the soul of our future. It will be heard and the effects will be there for generations. And that's why I'm saying to my party, you know, it's all very well navel-gazing, but we've got a big argument to make here. We've got a big fight that we've got to be in, and we've got to win that fight.
You said that proposal is immoral, to deport people who are already here if they don't pass more stringent rules. Do you think it's a racist policy?
Well, I do think that it is a racist policy. I do think it's immoral. It needs to be called out for what it is.
And do you think that Reform UK is trying to appeal to racists?
No, I think that there are plenty of people who either vote reform or are thinking of voting reform who are frustrated. They had 14 years of failure under the Conservatives. They want us to change things. They may have voted Labour a year ago, and they want the change to come more quickly. I actually do understand that, because if for 14 years your living standards haven't got any better and your public services have declined, then of course you want change.
But if for 14 months, Prime Minister, they've hired politicians and people in your government promise things, and then they see so little change, they are looking for somewhere else. And if we look for one of the things that you are announcing at this conference, your proposal to build new towns, for example, you're promising to build 12 new towns, but when you look in detail at the policy, the number of new towns you're saying there will be by 2029, 5 years after you won the election, it's 3. And even those 3 places might still not get built because they have to go through all sorts of checks. So people look at that and hear that and think, you're not getting anything done. It's too timid. There's no urgency.
Well, firstly, we've said we're going to build 1.5 million homes. And
and planning approvals for new homes are at a record low.
The towns are part of that. The planning applications reflect the position a year ago because it takes time to come through. But just hear me out on this. 1.5 million homes. And the reason for that is because the dream of home ownership, that base camp for aspiration, for opportunity, has been effectively snuffed out for young people. People now, on average, over 35 before they can afford to get their own home. That is unacceptable. That is a whole generation that have lost out.
And when you ask people in the sector...
the new towns are part of what we're doing in the 1.5 million. But look, the central charge you're putting to me is a really important one. I said before the election, it will take more than 12 months to turn around 14 years of failure. And it will take more than 12 months. It will take time. That's why we needed a 5-year mandate. But do I understand the frustration that people have? If you've lived through 14 years without your money in your pocket and your public going up, your public services being what they should be, then of course you want change more quickly. But I can't sit here today, nor did I say before the election, this can all be turned around on a flick of a switch. It's going to take time.
You did say it would take time, but what you and your party did not expect was this precipitous fall off a cliff in terms of your popularity. Leaders can be popular in hard times, and you're admitting there are hard times still, but your popularity has taken such a knock, and the country's finances are incredibly tight. There's huge pressure on public money, a budget coming up. Will you rule out raising VAT?
Well, Laura, just on the first point of your question, if I may, I came into politics to change lives for the better, to change our NHS and make sure that it was fit for purpose, to win investment in for jobs across the country. We've got record investment coming in.
Will you rule out raising VAT to pay for that?
We've done a massive exercise in Sizewell, where thousands of jobs now will be created as a result of that. The work we did with the US just a week ago on civil nuclear,
that's jobs in Hartlepool. Will you rule out raising VAT to pay for the public services people want?
That is why I'm in politics, to change lives. It's not a popularity contest for me. It's about changing lives. On the question of the budget, obviously the budget will be in November, as you know, and I'm not going to sit here and set out what's going to be in the budget.
No, hang on, Prime Minister.
That isn't going to happen.
On dozens and dozens and dozens of occasions, you ruled out raising VAT. It's in the solemn document of your party's manifesto. You're the Prime Minister of this country. Can you rule out raising VAT?
The manifesto stands.
So you rule out raising VAT?
We made commitments in that manifesto, and the manifesto stands.
And income tax?
Obviously, the details, the manifesto stands. We made those commitments. But
and they will not be unpicked?
The manifesto stands, Laura. It can't be clearer than that.
Well, you can. It's a different thing saying the manifesto stands right now, or are you saying actually it will stand in perpetuity? You're not going to unpick those promises?
Well, we put that manifesto before the electorate. We got elected, and that manifesto stands. I'm not going to go through the details of what may be in the budget. Obviously, it's 2 months away, and no Prime Minister and no Chancellor would ever sit here and indicate 2 months out what may or may not be in the budget. But the manifesto stands.
Well, hang on. Can you be crystal clear there? Because you're saying the manifesto stands right now, but I'm not going to talk about the budget. This is something you've ruled out dozens and dozens and dozens of times. You're ruling it out clearly right now.
The manifesto stands. We made those commitments. We stand by those commitments.
There's another issue that many people are worried about, which is special needs education for children, because the government's reviewing how it's provided. The system has had many problems over the years, so we don't need to outline the problems over the years. But would you rule out scrapping the legal right for children who need help with special needs at school?
Well, I don't want to take away rights, but we do need to reform this system.
So you might scrap that legal right?
Well, I'm not indicating that in the slightest, because we're looking at various options. What I'm doing is looking at the broad principles. As it stands, special educational needs doesn't work well for most people. Just hear me out, Laura, because at PMQs, Prime Minister's Questions, every Wednesday at 12 o'clock, the issue on which I've had more questions from across the House, so from Tories, from Lib Dem, and from my own side, the issue that's come up more than anything is special educational needs. And it is always MPs raising a concern in their constituency about the way in which special educational needs works at the moment. So we've got to look at that, and we've got to improve it. Now, we haven't come to final decisions on that, and therefore I'm not in a position to lay out the proposals to you. We will do in due course. But I'm absolutely clear in my mind the current system isn't working. And I think pretty well across the House people accept that. We need to change it. I've actually issued an invitation to other parties to work with us on this, because it's going to matter not just for the next year or 2 or 3, but for many years to come, and so we need to get it right.
I know many parents and charities will be listening to the details of your answer very
and I understand
very closely there. And before we move on, I just want to clarify something for the record. There's more detail in reporting from the Sunday Times today about a piece of land you bought for your parents many years ago. Did you put it into a trust?
No, I didn't. I bought a field for my mum and my dad because they loved donkeys, and my mum was very ill and she couldn't move around anymore. She, by the end of her life, had her leg amputated and she could barely communicate. She was very, very ill. She loved her donkeys, and I wanted her to be able to see her donkeys. I was a lawyer, I had quite a lot of money. I bought a field for £20,000 at the back of their house, and I said, here's your field, it's yours for as long as you may live. You could put your donkeys in it.
That's because
I didn't create a trust. I simply bought a field, and I said to Mum and Dad, this is for you.
Okay.
It was, and also, by the way, Laura, it was £20,000. We're not looking at a vast estate with great tax.
It's a lot of money to many people, and you sold it many years later for more than
It is a lot of money, but the idea of setting up some complicated trust for a £20,000 agricultural field, which then housed 4 donkeys for all the time my mum and dad. It was my mum. She was able. They had a little outhouse at the edge of the field, and she was able, in the end, to see the donkeys. And my dad built a little sort of porchway so he could wheel the wheelchair out so she could touch the donkeys. That's what it was for, and I gave it to them. I had enough money at the time because I was a lawyer. It was a gift to my mum and dad.
And that's now on the record. You did not put it in trust, and that's not been on the record before, and that is now on the record. What's Andy Burnham up to?
Well, he's doing a very good job as the Mayor of Manchester, and I work very closely with him, as I do with all the mayors. One of the things we've changed is the way government and mayors work, because mayors very much felt shut out by the last government. We now work with them, and I think Andy would be the first to accept that.
He's
so
also
I work
the first
with him.
to say, but not the only person to say, that there are issues with your leadership. His colleague in London, Sadiq Khan, said he'd been raising legitimate concerns. And the point about this is that although I know it's awkward for you to talk about leadership, if you don't have the 100% confidence of your party, you can't get the things done that you want to do.
Comments about leaders and leadership are part and parcel of being in politics. It is the bread and butter of politics. Every leader gets it. It always comes out, particularly at conference. It's in the job description. I don't focus on that. I focus on what have we got to get done? What are we able to achieve? I focus on how can we drive... 2 million extra appointments for the NHS is what we promised. We've delivered 5 million. I'm really pleased and proud of that. We've won contracts for jobs, the like of which we haven't seen for years. I'm really proud of that.
Think about what's happened in Parliament. You've had to ditch some of your big plans because you couldn't carry your party with you. Think about why some people in your party are desperately worried about what's going on, because you have been miles behind in the polls for month after month after month. I've spoken to a lot of people in the Labour Party in the last few months about this, and there is wide and deep concern about the way in which you're doing your job. Is it wise to stick your fingers in and say, "Pah, leadership's just what happens"?
No, look, people are entitled to their views, and I'm not sticking my fingers in my ear in the slightest. What I am saying is that it is important to keep focusing what it is that we are delivering and saying absolutely in clear terms the difference it makes to people's lives. That Hillsborough law means that thousands of people, whether it's the 97 or Grenfell or Windrush or Horizon or infected blood and all the other scandals, will have a degree of justice, but other people will never have to go through that again.
But
it's going to change lives.
Prime Minister,
the jobs in the Clyde for 15 years are going to change lives.
But Prime Minister, if people in your party and the public, which we can see through the polls, look at that list and look at you and think, we don't have much faith in that. We don't have that much faith in what this man is doing on our behalf. What if, Prime Minister, the problem is you?
Well, Laura, I will be judged at the next election on 3 things, I think, more than anything else. 1, have we improved living standards? Do people genuinely feel better off? 2, have we improved public services? Is the NHS in a better place and people can feel it? And 3, do people feel safe and secure in their home, in their neighbourhood, and that their country is secure? And I'm very happy and will be judged, rightly judged, in that way. We won a mandate, a considerable mandate, I led the party into that mandate. It's a 5-year mandate, and I'll be judged at the end of that 5 years, and quite right too. But I just need the space to get on and do what we need to do those 3 things above all else, but also in a world which is more volatile than any of us have known for a very long time, to ensure that the United Kingdom is safe and secure, which is why we're doing all the work we are on the Coalition of the Willing, making sure that on defence and security we are seen once again as a leading nation.
One of your Labour predecessors, when he was having a bit of bother, Harold Wilson, when asked what was going on with his leadership, he said, "I tell you what's going on, this government's going on and I'm going on." And John Major said to his critics, "Put up or shut up." What's Keir Starmer saying? Give me time, give me space?
I am saying we have got the fight of our lives ahead of us, because we've got to take on reform, we've got to beat them. And so now is not the time for introspection or navel-gazing. There is a fight that we are all in together, and every single member of our party and our movement, actually everyone who cares about what this country is, whether they vote Labour or otherwise, it's the fight of our lives for who we are as a country. We need to be in that fight, united, not navel-gazing. I'm absolutely clear in my mind about that, and that's what I'm going to be talking about at the conference.
Prime Minister, thanks very much indeed for coming in to talk to everybody watching this morning. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Well, as ever, we want to know what you think of what you hear with us on Sunday mornings. Do get in touch. You can email us, kuenssberg@bbc.co.uk, or if you're social media minded, you can use the hashtag BBC Laura K, and of course you can message us on WhatsApp too. The number is 08000 282 161. Well then, to our trio who've been waiting patiently throughout that. Alan Johnson, you're sitting there with a wry smile. Why are you smiling?
Well, I'm smiling because you've invited me on the only edition that comes from a museum, so that must tell me something. I thought that was excellent. But I've sat through lots of your interviews and your predecessors, and this argument always comes up of someone waiting in the wings. Can I tell you, when we were here in 2009, colleagues were coming to me to tell me I should stand against Gordon Brown.
I remember.
Here's a simple bit of advice for Andy. Do what I did. Go and find a television camera, stand in front of it, and say, I have no intention of standing against the elected leader of our party.
So you'd like to see him do that in the next few days?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, actually, for his own good, he's a very talented politician, Andy, and he's made a great job of Manchester. This is not doing him any favours, certainly not doing the Labour Party any favours, and I think it's not doing the country any favours.
Well, there's still time. It's, what, 9:30? There's half an hour. He's probably not that far away. Maybe you could pop out to the studio. It'd be very welcome. Gary Smith, Alan has very clearly said that, you know, Andy Burnham in particular needs to kind of simmer down. But there are issues, are there not?
There's an old trade union adage. Unity is strength. If the Labour Party repeat what the Tories have done, introspection, spend all their time on political machinations and games, a revolving door at 10 Downing Street, it would be a disaster for Labour. People elected a Labour government to bring back jobs, reindustrialisation, to give people new rights at work, to give people hope at work, secure employment and better wages. That's what I want Labour politicians to focus on. But
there are many people in your movement and some of other union leaders who are really frustrated about what's happened. They look at the unpopularity of the party in the country, they look at lack of action on some issues, and they're really frustrated, and they've told the government to pull their socks up.
The government has got stuff wrong. The government at times has been poor at listening. Sizewell, a new nuclear power station, tens of thousands of jobs. We're rebuilding shipbuilding on the Clyde. Barrow and Furnace, defence spending is transforming that town. A Bill of Workers' Rights is going to make people more secure at work. What we're going to do for care workers, what we're doing on equal pay, finishing 50 years legacy of Barbara Castle. We're going to give women more rights at work. We're doing some really transformative stuff with thousands of apprenticeships being created.
But it doesn't feel like that, though, Belle. When you talk to people in the Labour Party
about timidity, they're best when they're being bold, and that's my message to them. Be bold.
Well, that was a Gordon Brown line, I think, many years ago, wasn't it? I mean, Belle, these two, I suspect, are trying to be helpful here this morning. But when you hear Keir Starmer talking about targeting reform, about trying to go after those voters who've been tempted over Nigel Farage, as someone on the left of the party, do you think that's the right place to look?
I mean, genuinely, I think we're all trying to be helpful. Those of us that might be critical of policies are sometimes called unhelpful, but I don't think that's fair. I think it's important that we have diverse views in our movement. I actually think it's important that we listen to our members and we look at the facts. The facts are that at the moment, we're not losing most of our voters to reform. We're losing them to the Greens and the Lib Dems because of a more progressive policy agenda. So actually, should we not be looking there? Should we stop trying to reform and be more Labour? There are so many different things we could do. And, you know, we have done great things, as you've heard, but they just keep getting clouded out by, you know, some mistakes that we shouldn't have made. If we had listened to members on the winter fuel allowance, on the benefit cuts, all of these different things, on Gaza, perhaps we wouldn't be as unpopular as it feels at the moment, but it's not impossible to turn it around. I mean, I'm hearing that we might have get to lift the two-child benefit cap. That would instantly raise, you know, so many children out of poverty.
Let's pick up on that point then about who Labour should be fighting, because it's very clear that the leadership has identified reform as its main rival. But as Belle was just suggesting, it's not the only direction where there is pressure. So back after popular acclaim, we asked the nation's favourite number cruncher, Professor Sir John Curtis, to explain just how tricky things are for the party. He told us a new elected government has never lost support as fast as this one. So let's take a look at what he's got to say. Remember this, it's 60 seconds on Sunday.
Labour's popularity has plummeted since gaining office just over a year ago. Then the party won 35% of the vote. In the polls now, it stands on average at just 21%. As a result, Labour is 9 points behind Nigel Farage's reform. But while Labour has indeed lost 12% of its 2024 voters to reform, 11% have switched to the Democrats and 10% to the Greens. The 2024 Labour coalition has in fact fractured in all directions following widespread disillusion with the government's performance. 68% of 2024 Labour voters feel the government is handling immigration badly, 63% the economy and 58% the NHS. To restore its fortunes, Labour badly needs to persuade them it can turn the country around after all.
Alan Johnson, is a digital ID card going to be the thing that's suddenly going to get voters saying hurrah for the Labour Party? I mean, you were the Home Secretary. You tried to introduce them back in the day, I think.
I introduced the ID card. I've still got my ID card.
You got it with you?
And then the Tories scrapped it. Now, I don't know why they did. All I know is that any responsible government looking at the situation, there are only two places in Europe that do not have an ID card, Ireland and Britain. Germany, when we introduced it in 2010, people told us, well, the Germans won't introduce one. They introduced it later that year. So this is the only country where you can't prove and protect your identity through the new technology that allows us to do it with a digital card. It's ludicrous that that's the situation. And Britain and England and Ireland happen to be the two places where illegal migration, which is a very small percentage of immigration, by the way, but where illegal immigrants go to disappear. I
don't want you to miss, we just had a little trip down memory lane, you showing your mocked-up ID card. We showed that to viewers to just remind people of the debate back then. But it was a very vigorous debate back then. And, Belle, there are plenty of people in the party who are not happy about it at all.
There's plenty of people across the country. There's a petition, parliamentary petition. It's got over 2 million signatures, just over 24 hours. People don't want to see this, and also they don't understand it. What is the purpose of it? Now, I know there are many other countries that have these ID cards, but that hasn't stopped the type of working that we're talking about.
So would backbenchers fight this in Parliament? Would you, as a backbencher, try to fight it?
It's not something with that much... it's not something that I would ever see myself supporting. I don't understand the purpose of it. With the hostile environment as it is, we have to prove our identity to work in a certain way anyway. Migrants already have these biometric ID cards. And actually, what's going to happen? We're going to have this card. We don't know which private company we're going to hand it over to, you know, and how much profit they're going to make from this. All these issues with people's data and their civil liberties. And actually, for what? The types of working we're trying to stop are not going to stop. The cash in hand type working, and and as you said, I think you talked. You made a comment from somebody that
sent
something.
A stinging question from one of our excellent viewers.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It doesn't make any sense because those types of people that create that irregular type of work, they're not going to be asking people for their digital ID card.
Just before we move on, Gary, in terms of the big question behind all of this, the economy. Keir Starmer said the manifesto stands when it comes to not raising VAT, but it is pretty clear the feeling in the air is that Rachel Reeves is going to have to find money from somewhere. Where should it come from?
We've had discussions about this, things like the gambling tax. There should be a.
You've been talking to the leadership about where it comes from.
We have said to them areas like that there is an opportunity for us to raise more money. We need to look at how we do defence spending. There is alternatives. We've spoken about that. We do need investment in our economy. It brings back jobs, it brings back opportunity, it brings back hope. But let's be clear, this government inherited a bin fire from the Tories. But what is driving the anger and frustration in this country is people feel poorer. They see communities and public services that feel broken and beat, and Labour's going to have to raise those up, and they can.
OK, all three of you, thank you very much indeed for now, because it is the Tories' turn. They'll have their turn at conference next week, and they are also under pressure from reform. And they also have a leader who not everyone in their ranks thinks is pulling them in the right direction. Well, James Cleverly is a familiar face to all of us, former cabinet minister under different Conservative administrations, who also had a run at the leadership himself. But he joins us this morning for the first time in his new job as Shadow Housing Secretary. Good morning to you, Mr Cleverly.
Good morning.
Keir Starmer told us the battle with reform is a battle for the soul of the nation. Do you see it in the same almost moral terms?
Well, Labour and Keir Starmer personally are now desperately trying to recover some credibility when it comes to national pride and patriotism. This is a party that mocked people who are flying the Cross of St George. He is a person who himself said all immigration law is racist. This is a party who voted 139 times against our attempts to strengthen the border, and who opposed me when I was Home Secretary, when I tightened up the rules about who could come and work here and live here in the UK. So this is a day late and a dollar short, and nobody is buying it. These are people, this is a party that has ridiculed the identity and institutions and heritage of this country, and suddenly, out of the blue, like the Labour Party does whenever it's in trouble, is trying to wrap itself up in the national flag. Nobody is buying it.
And yet, I'm asking about your party. Do you see the fight with reform in the same terms as Keir Starmer has framed it this morning? He suggested some of their policy is racist, and he's presenting it as a moral battle for the soul of the nation. Do you, as a senior Conservative, see it in those same terms?
Keir Starmer can describe his troubles and tribulations in his own language. My observation of reform is, as it's always been, that they are very, very good at headline grabbing, and you guys are very compliant when it comes to covering what they say. But very often, and we've seen this with their latest announcements, as soon as you look at any of the details, the policies fall apart. The deportation announcement, based on figures that were denounced by the authors of those figures within hours. No plan for delivery. So yes, good at grabbing the headlines, but governing is more than about grabbing the headlines. And that is why the Conservative Party under Kemi is making sure that when we make promises about securing our borders, about reducing taxation, about increasing defence, about securing our country, that those announcements will be underpinned with a delivery plan and the genuine hard work that you need to deliver policy, not just the here today, gone tomorrow headline-grabbing announcements that we're seeing both from Labour, frankly, and from Reform.
Well, Reform have also proved quite good, not just at grabbing headlines, but it's grabbing plenty of your former colleagues to go and join their ranks, because many of them, like Danny Kruger, look at what Reform has done and think, hang on a minute, they're the future, your party is the past. When it comes to things that have gone before in the Conservative Party, I just wonder, are you completely signed up to everything that Kemi Badenoch is now saying? Because not so long ago, you said we don't have to choose between a strong economy and protecting our environment. Yet she has said she'd drop the target of net zero by 2050. So was she wrong, or have you changed your mind?
No, and actually, the point that I made, the speech where I made that suggestion, that point, I also set out how the British tech sector could be really successful by promoting renewable energy generation, large-scale battery storage, wind power. The point I was making is about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Net zero.
And is that what
she's
doing? Because plenty of people have said if you get rid of net zero, that's exactly what she's doing.
Yeah, but I don't agree with those people, and I don't think Kemi does either. What we're saying is the net zero commitment that was put in place before Russia's invasion of Ukraine, was put in before the turbulence we've seen in energy markets around the world, is not deliverable on the timescale that it was originally set. What Kemi is saying is that this Ed Miliband nonsense, which is dragging British industry to its knees, which is giving us higher energy prices than other European and global competitors. Ed Miliband is closing off domestic energy generation just at a time when the country should be more energy independent. That is nonsense. That is what we are rejecting. What I was saying is that whilst swallowing that reality pill when it comes to the global energy mix, we should also ensure that we still invest in green energy generation, which is an export opportunity and will make our country money, mass battery storage capacity, which again, electric car technology, manufacturing, all these things can go in parallel. And the arguments that are made by some political parties, including Reform, which is you have to reject anything to do with non-hydrocarbon energy generation, is nonsense. And again, the Conservative Party, uniquely in the political landscape, is setting out a proper, balanced approach which protects our energy independence in the here and now and also sees investment in technologies of the future.
I want to ask the new James Cleverly about something else the old James Cleverly used to say. He used to say leaving the European Convention on Human Rights wasn't something that would solve everything. If your leader announces, as we may expect, that the Conservatives would leave the European Convention on Human Rights, would that be the right thing to do? Will you have changed your mind on that as well?
So, Laura, if you're going to quote me, you need to actually quote me, not quote things I didn't say. What I've said, what Kemi has said, and what I believe Lord Wolfson is saying is that leaving the ECHR on its own is not a silver bullet. That was my quote. And the point that I've made is if we are going to do that, we've got to recognise that there have been a whole load of judicial decisions, which I regard as pretty activist decisions, which are perverse and completely at odds with what the British people want. Dealing with that environment won't be solved just by leaving the ECHR, which is why Kemi's asked Lord Wolfson to look at a much broader set of questions about, can we deport people that should be deported? Can we protect our service personnel against lawfare? Can we ensure that our systems, particularly our legal and judicial systems, reflect the needs and wants of the country rather than the political appetites of a small number of decision makers in the judiciary? That is the question that is being asked.
Okay.
That is completely consistent with what I've always said.
OK, James Cleverly, it's good to have you back with us on the show, and I suspect there'll be a vigorous debate about that particular issue at the Conservative Party conference next week. Thanks for being with us. And we will be there next week at the Conservative conference in Manchester, and James Cleverly's boss, Kemi Badenoch, will be with us then too. So stick it in your diary. Now for something completely different. As a young teenager, Greta Thunberg shot to fame with her campaign against climate change. Now in her 20s, she's on one of over 50 ships trying to get to Gaza to provide humanitarian aid. I spoke to her on her phone somewhere off the coast of Greece.
What we are trying to achieve is to show the mass mobilization for Palestine and to show that the people of the world stand with Palestine. We are sailing again with dozens of boats, the biggest ever fleet to try to break Israel's illegal and inhumane siege on Gaza by sea. We are doing everything from our side to maximize the chances of us achieving the mission. But of course, this is not only a humanitarian mission. We are carrying humanitarian aid, aiming to get that aid into Gaza and open up a people's humanitarian corridor. but we are also carrying hope and solidarity, and to send a strong message to the people in Gaza that the world sees you, and that when our governments fail to step up, the people will step up. We know that there's a genocide going on in Gaza. The UN Commission has now confirmed what Palestinians and human rights organizations have been saying for a very long time, that it is a genocide. And under international law, that means that states have a legal duty to act.
The international courts, though, are yet to reach a verdict on genocide, and Israel denies it. But in terms of your flotilla, there are dangers in the way that you are going about this, and the flotilla has become a target. There was a different proposal from the Italian government where you sent your aid to Cyprus, and then it was taken by the Catholic Church into Jerusalem. Why not pursue that route rather than carrying out this journey where you have been in great danger?
Almost every single time we have received those kinds of proposals. But we know that Israel is not acting in the favor of the Palestinian people, so why would we fall for that? Most of the things that we have been told have been lies. And what we are trying to do is not only to deliver humanitarian aid, if I can remind, we are trying to break the illegal siege. The people of Gaza have a right to decide what comes in and out of their territorial waters. Israel's siege is illegal and should not exist.
But there have been videos shown of attacks on the flotilla. Some countries, Italy and Spain, have even sent naval ships to protect you. Would you like the UK government to do that? I mean, are you scared for your own safety there out at sea?
We have seen escalated attacks, yes, and we have seen escalated threats, baseless threats from Israeli officials that have no legal grounds, and that would be a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and Geneva Conventions. But why would they target us? Why would they attack a peaceful humanitarian mission aiming to bring humanitarian aid to a starving population?
Is it frightening?
What is frightening is to live in a world where people seem to be able to accept that a live stream genocide is going on and not do anything about it.
There are, of course, many humanitarian organisations who are doing their very best to try to get aid into Gaza. Governments around the world are trying to put pressure on Israel. You have been accused of this flotilla being something of a publicity stunt, trying to attract attention and taking risks to get publicity rather than a serious attempt to make a change to the situation. What do you say to that accusation?
First of all, I don't think anyone would risk their life for a publicity stunt. Second of all, if you think it's a publicity stunt, have you asked the people in Gaza if they consider this to be a publicity stunt? And I repeat, this mission should not have to exist. We do not want to be doing this, but we have to keep trying, right? If we just thought to ourselves, well, I'm just one person, I can't make a difference, then almost no one of us would have any rights by now.
So you're focused on campaigning for Gaza right now, but Donald Trump told the world at the United Nations this week, suggesting that climate change was a con and was a hoax. What did that make you feel? I mean, do you still have hope that your campaigning for so many years will actually make a difference when you hear the American president say that?
Honestly, I'm trying to think of a response to that, but I can't find any, to be honest. I don't think it's worthy of a response. The statements that some of the most powerful people in the world are making are nothing less but out of a parody. And we know their intentions. We know they are not listening to the most basic science. We know they are not complying by international law or any common sense whatsoever.
Well, Greta, it's been great to get your responses this morning, speaking to us from the middle of the sea. Thank you very much indeed for giving us your time during your journey, and thank you very much indeed.
Have a nice day. Take care.
Now then, back to our main focus here at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. The next 72 hours of this conference really is critical for the Prime Minister. This is what he told us about his government's mission.
I'm saying we have got the fight of our lives ahead of us because we've got to take on reform, we've got to beat them. And so now is not the time for introspection or navel gazing. There is a fight that we are all in together, and every single member of our party and our movement actually everyone who cares about what this country is, whether they vote Labour or otherwise. It's the fight of our lives for who we are as a country.
He said, Bell, now is not the time, give me space, almost an appeal to backbenchers and other in the parties who have been publicly saying, some of them, he's maybe only got till May, things have to improve, he's got to sort himself out. Do you think that this morning will have settled anybody's nerves?
I think people are going to be looking at a change in direction. And, you know, he said we've got 72 hours. We've got time for a change in that direction. And whilst, yes, definitely there have been people talking about the individual, for a long time, a lot of us have just been talking about the policies. We really need to change the finances of this country around. And in order to do that, we are going to have to invest in public services, but at the moment we're cutting things and it doesn't make any sense.
So you say a change in direction. What do you mean by that? Because actually this government has raised taxes and put tens of billions extra into the NHS. So what do you mean by a change of direction?
Well, at the moment we are not going far enough on things. We do need to raise money. I think all of this Treasury orthodoxy is not you know, going well for us. I think the idea that we would not look to lift the two-child benefit cap, the idea that we would continue to spend money on things that frankly don't make sense to me, these nuclear jets I think we're spending money on, we continue to give private companies millions, billions of pounds to run our public services, all of these different things that are causing problems, in my view, in terms of us moving forward with investment in public services.
Alan, I mean, this is a traditional debate in the left party, the Labour Party, isn't it? You know, left v other bit of the not quite so left.
Heard it over and over again. But what Keir concentrated on was some of the successes so far. I was in Harold Wilson's old constituency, Huyton, on Friday night with the splendid MP.
And you wrote his biography, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm his biographer. But there were people there telling me in quite a depressed part of Liverpool. I don't like to use the term deprived because I don't think they are deprived. It's a wonderful, warm community. They were telling me of the difference that breakfast clubs have made, both in attendance and attainment to their kids. Annalise was telling me about the money she's getting from the £5 billion pride of place to do
but if that's all making
and the Hillsborough law that the Prime Minister.
But if that's making a difference, then why is your party getting absolutely pummeled in the polls? Because it's not like a little local difficulty. This is month upon month upon month, as we heard from John Curtis, the worst crash in popularity ever for a new government.
Two things. We need some growth in the economy, and we need to stop illegal immigration into this country, which flourished when it's 3 times the level since I was Home Secretary, by the way. Under the Tories it happened, but it has to be dealt with. People quite rightly say these are people coming here illegally and they're mainly young men of working age. We have to deal with that. I think the returns agreement actually is going to prosper and grow with France, and we can do something.
And just that, you know, if we're going to get that growth in the economy, we need to invest in our public services. You agree?
What are we doing with the billions of pounds that Rachel Reeves raised? Why have you forgotten that, Bell?
I'm sorry. I haven't. No one's saying that we haven't done good things. No one's saying that we haven't.
Kind of sound like that.
Because I'm criticising things that I believe that have gone wrong doesn't mean I don't agree we haven't done. I talk about the good things all the time. I was asked about what's gone wrong, so I answered.
Let's just close, Gary, with a thought about Keir Starmer's leadership himself, though, because it is true when you speak to people privately, there is a very, very deep level of concern in the Labour Party about not just the difficulties of the government, but about his style of leadership. What if it is him?
I don't think people in the country are interested in the machinations or in personalities. The Tories had a revolving...
Your party very much is interested in...
The Tories had a revolving door at number 10, it ended in disaster. I listened to James Cleverly today. They got this country in such a mess. That's why people are angry, they're poorer, much of our communities look broken, and it was because of them. That's what we've got to remember. This government has been at the best when it's been bold. Nationalising steel, investing in defence, bringing back tens of thousands of apprentices and jobs. Sizewell, thousands of jobs going to be built in the nuclear power station there. Be bold is my message. And to all the politicians, get focused on the day job, the job you were elected by the people of this country to do last year.
Is Keir Starmer be the leader by the next election?
Yes.
Bell?
Probably.
Probably. Gary?
I think so.
Okay, well, all three of you, thank you very much indeed for your time here this morning. It's going to be a busy old few days here in Liverpool. The Prime Minister this morning tried to start the week off by showing that his leadership can count. There's nothing easy about this era for mainstream politicians, not the debt, not the demographics, not the distractions from new political forces trying to manipulate the old. By the end of Wednesday, will Labour have shone in the conference spotlight, or will more of the difficulties be on full display? We will see. Thank you to all of our guests this morning, and thank you most of all to you at home for watching. I'll be with Paddy O'Connell for Sunday's newscast very soon, and next week we'll be with the Conservatives at their conference in Manchester. So I look forward to seeing you then, same time, but different place.